So thanks for watching my video. This is going to be a clutch line replacement. I'm going to install braided clutch line on a Honda VFR 750F. This is going to be the same process that you would use for almost every motorcycle with a hydraulic clutch. So the first thing we're going to need to do is take some towels, rags, and protect the paint around your clutch reservoir. We do not want to get any of that .4 on any parts of the bike. If you do drip some of the .4 on anything, make sure you clean it off immediately. So now I just took my Mighty Vac and I sucked all of the old clutch fluid out of the bike. I don't know how long that clutch fluid's been in there. This bike is new to me. This is something I do every time that I buy a used bike. I replace all the fluids, the tires. I go through the entire bike top to bottom. So with that being said, I know I'm going to keep this bike around for a while, so I went ahead and I bought the Galfer Braided brake lines, clutch lines, and that's what I'm going to put on today. So what I've done is I removed the banjo bolt that's holding the clutch line onto the master cylinder, and I pulled it down through the forks. You need to be very, very careful when doing this because you don't want to drip any of that .4 on any of the motorcycle parts. So now I'm removing the speedometer sensor. We want to be very careful while we're removing this. Not as much pulling it off as installing it. We don't want to break that little plastic hub that's on there that rides on the counter shaft bolt. Otherwise our speedometer won't work correctly. So now I just removed the banjo bolt from the slave cylinder, and so my old original clutch line is completely off, and I wiped everything down to make sure there's no .4 anywhere. And then we're going to install the new one. And there will be a sticker on your line when you buy it, and it'll tell you master. So that sticker means that master goes up top. So your kit should also have new banjo bolts and new crush washers. Never ever reuse Never reuse crush washers. It's just not a good thing to do. A crush washer is one use only. The last thing we want to do is introduce air to our system when we're riding down the road, and that can happen with a used crush washer. So since new ones are provided, use them. If they're not provided, get some new ones. They're only a few cents a piece, and they're well worth the money. So I have my cable loosely fitted. It's attached to the slave cylinder, and now I want to route it up through the bike and get it to the clutch master cylinder. So I've got it up to the clutch master cylinder, and I'm going to put in the new banjo bolt and the new crush washer. Make sure your old crush washer isn't stuck to the master like mine was. That's what you saw me throw off to the side. And then you're going to want to line this up, and it is kind of tricky because your braided line is not going to have the play and the flexibility that the OEM DOT line had. The braided line is much more rigid, and it's a much better line as well. But this bike is almost 20 years old, and the older your bike gets, I personally feel that it's time that you should replace your brake lines, just to get rid of the sponginess that's just comes with age and using the brakes. And the brakes and the clutch just feel so much better when you have braided lines on them. So once you get the thread started, you can go ahead and tighten down that upper banjo bolt. And once you've got your upper banjo bolt tightened down, go ahead and tighten down the one that's on the slave. And then install your speedometer pickup. And make sure you get that little hub on there correctly, so you don't like jam it up against the countershaft bolt and break that little plastic hub off. Again, I'm going to double check that banjo bolt, and all is well. We're going to tighten down the 8mm bolts that hold our speedo on. Now make sure you keep your zip ties that hold the clutch cable onto the frame. If not, use some new zip ties. You don't want your clutch cable flopping around and inside the engine compartment. Um, it's not a bad idea to keep your clutch cable kind of attached to the frame and away from the engine, so that engine heat isn't cooking your DOT 4. At this point, we're ready to add DOT 4 to the reservoir, and we're going to top it off. And now we're going to start at the slave, and we're going to pull all the fluid from the reservoir down to the slave cylinder. So we put our mighty back on, and we pump it up a few times to get some pressure, and then we break the valve open. And this will pull that brand new fluid down to the slave cylinder. Now, if you've watched any of my videos, I often tell you, once you've pulled fluid through the system, put a zip tie on the lever and let it sit overnight. Both the clutch and the brake levers will get much tighter with a zip tie. From what I understand, the zip tie forces all the air to the top of the system, and it makes your brake feel just phenomenal. I can't brag enough. A friend of mine, Regan Shaw, who's now passed, he told me that trick. probably 20 years ago, and I tried to share that with anybody I know who's interested or who's working on brakes, and I've gotten the same positive results from everyone who's tried it. So here we are, we're finished up bleeding the clutch system. Um, Once you top off your reservoir, go ahead and put the cap back on, put your screws in, pump your clutch a few times, make sure it's there, and you're all done. Thank you much for watching my video. Please do watch some of my others. I can really use the hits. Be safe out there and enjoy your ride.